You don't end with AI, you start with AI.
Leaders cannot pause innovation out of fear, and also they cannot push innovation forward without responsibility.
The leaders that thrive and do well realize that the biggest challenge is not how I implement it, but how do I integrate it in my organization. We can't get to that leadership style without an inner shift.
Leadership today is more about enabling people to make better decisions rather than directing them how to make these decisions.
This is what we need to focus on. It's more of a team sport, leadership these days.
Welcome back to a new episode from the Human Side of AI series by the Analyst Architect. Think about the moment where someone gets promoted into a leadership role. They may have been excellent at their job before, but that doesn't mean they will succeed as a leader. The role changes, and of course, the responsibility becomes bigger. This is exactly the same shift when AI becomes part of the organization. In the last episode, we talked about why the human dimension matters, how AI shapes decisions and depends on empathy and responsibility. Today, we move from the why to the who, because AI transformation doesn't succeed through tools alone. It succeeds when leaders understand how the role changes, how they guide decisions and set directions to take responsibility in a more complex environment. Dora, this is a topic you have lived and led for years. It's great to have you with me again.
Thank you, Amar. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. So much of my work these days, it's all around leadership and leadership in an AI disruption-driven world and the human side of AI that we're talking. So switching our lens to speak about the who and how we lead through this, it's absolutely near and dear to my heart. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Well, from your experience, why do some leaders successfully drive AI transformation while others continue to struggle with it?
You know, I think it all starts with how the lens by which they're thinking about it. So it's a mindset thing. If they're looking at AI as a technology project, as an IT implementation project or an AI tech implementation initiative, in my experience, that's the wrong way to think about it. So the leaders that do well and thrive understand that this is really more about driving transformation, and that's people transformation before anything else. It starts with people transformation, and then we're talking about processes, and then we're talking about tools. Where AI, this time and age, it could be all AI or it could be AI, it's big components, because it's not all or nothing either. That's the other thing, right? In these initiatives, AI might play a big role, and we're doing AI pieces and everything, but it doesn't mean that you don't have other technology components, because this is not a lone island. And one of the biggest challenges, and that's something for leaders to understand as well, is how we integrate this, let's call it newer technology, at least the way it's not really that new, but we're thinking about it that way, and it's evolving. So there's new components of AI technology coming in. The leaders that thrive and do well realize that the biggest challenge is not how I implement it, but how do I integrate it in my organization. And integration, it starts with people integration, so changing the culture, transforming the organization, how people are using it, how they talk about it, what is the culture that as leaders we're shaping for people to feel safe to experiment with this new technology, to use this new technology, to learn about this new technology, to talk about it with others in the organization, to start working on actual tangible projects with others in the organization. And it's evolving so fast that things may be changing, things may be confusing sometimes. We're figuring things out. So leaders that understand that there is a critical component, they're investing in the people and culture and organizational transformation will thrive, because that's the first component of integration. Then we have the process integration, understanding that, hey, yes, processes, not only processes that are running business processes, business capabilities that are executed through different processes, but also that how we execute, how we implement, what are the different operational processes, those might change as well. Because again, you having this new kid on the block, let's call it, right? This new or varied technology that's powerful, but it's still something new. It's still a technology. which is why the last part of the integration for me, in terms of criticality and needs to figure out, is the technology. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's hard. It's even harder because things are changing very hard. Those technical skills are hard to come by, talent, right? But when I look at them in silos out of all three, and in my experience, taking the people through the transformation successfully is actually the biggest challenge and the hardest one to successfully solve for on a continuous basis as well, because none of these is one time and done. The process actually might figure it out and we implement a new process, but the process is being manifested, if you will. It's being executed by people. I used to joke, I joke sometimes that, we as humans are hard. We're unpredictable. We're very dynamic, and it's the time of the day who we're working with, what we're talking about. You can't box a human, basically. The situational awareness, it's important, and understanding that everybody, how they show up at that point in time. So that's why I'm saying the transformation of the people component, it is the most critical to success in my experience, and is the hardest one to solve for. But then getting that and understanding it within business context, why we're doing, and when leaders think about it that way, and it's not a technology implementation, but an actual business, people, process, and technology and data with it, transformation that we need to drive through, that's when leaders do well and they thrive. Clarity in all of this is important. Why we're doing it, why we're doing it, how we'll do it, people first, process, tech, data with that in there as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Clarity and the journey, along with all the items you brought to the table. But I would like to build on that idea by a real example. Can you share with us an example where you have seen leadership actually evolve inside organizations adopting AI? And another question within the same example, how AI changed or is changing leadership styles?
Years ago, decades ago, authoritative style of leadership was pretty typical, I think, almost expected. Over the years, we talked a lot about servant leadership, empathetic leadership. I recall I was on a panel with my peers at the MIT CDOIQ conference, probably 4 years ago, I think. And we were talking about data governance, but we were talking about empathetic leadership and the importance of empathy in data governance even, which sounds like an oxymoron. All I'm trying to say is, it's not new, but AI is really highlighting the need that to succeed, leadership styles need to now solidify. It's more the collaborative style. It's more the empathetic style of leadership. Today's leaders are not succeeding just because, they're good bosses in terms of, I'll tell you what to do because I know everything, because I've been there. No one knows everything. Hardly anybody has been there with this technology anyway, how things are changing so fast, right? So today's leaders and how I see the leadership style shifting, it's more about connecting the dots, making sense of what's happening, making sure that we are investing in the right resources and we are bringing the right pieces together. It's almost like leaders today and leadership styles, it's less the authoritative, the directive, the let me tell you what to do, and the hierarchical. And it's more about kind of like an orchestra conductor, You don't do everything yourself, but you get the best out of your organization. There are people that will go deep into the AI technology and what to do with it. There are people that can go deep into how we work well together. So in my experience, and what I'm advocating for is that today's leadership style is one that gets the organization ready to work together, do that cross-functionally, even with all of the disruption and all the uncertainty. And it's not about go do this because I said so or go do this because I know better, because everybody can just pick up our phone and we ask the question to the phone and we get, PhD level knowledge back, right?
Yeah.
So it's more about how do I work better with people? How do I mobilize my team? How do I make sure that, back to clarity that we're talking about, what we're doing is clear, is consistently understood by everybody? And I want people to be part of this, give their talents, bring their talents with a team, and drive this transformation with a leader, kind of like, again, orchestrating it. and being that face of the transformation, and less about this is what we need to focus on. It's more of a team sport, leadership these days.
Yeah.
So I've seen that shift. And again, let me just say, it's not new. We've been talking about this for a long time. It's just with AI, the impact, because everything can happen so much faster and so much more at scale. The impact of whatever decision or whatever outcomes of whatever we're building is huge. And so that kind of empathetic, collaborative, transparent, let me get the team to work together, let me connect the dots so I make sure that, hey, I am setting the direction, but it's not like I tell you exactly what to do, how to do it, and having the trust in my people. That's where leaders are needed. And being that calm, grounded voice that works well under pressure. Because no question about it, today's world, I think, is we felt that pressure because of all the heightened pace of disruption more than ever before.
Absolutely.
So that's what leaders need to focus on today in the organization and how styles are shifting.
I like how you framed that, to be honest, Dora, and how you mentioned that leadership today is more about enabling people to make better decisions rather than directing them how to make these decisions. It's very powerful. And I think this will bring us to the mindset behind all of this. From your experience, what are the biggest mindset shifts leaders need to make to lead effectively in the age of AI, using all the components that you mentioned before?
We can't get to that leadership style without an inner shift. So every leader, I think, has this challenge these days where if they're not there already, to realize that it all starts from within. So the mindset shift that you're talking about internally to the leader, it's more about don't need to know all the answers. In fact, I'm never going to have all of the answers. And that is okay. So it's the inner mindset shift of it's not about control, but it's about being adaptable. It's about getting the courage to make those decisions when everything, like moving sand, everything is changing so quickly around us. It's less about control, again, more about stewardship and trusting your team. But in order to do that, to trust your team, to enable your team, it goes back to how do you show up as a leader? How do you, again, start seeing things through a different lens where you start learning yourself. You are adaptable yourself, and you are a perpetual learner yourself, and you are human, because having this persona of I'm the leader, I know everything, and if that's how people are thinking, they'll miss the train, so to speak, because that's just not going to fly these days. But it starts with, hey, I don't know everything, but I know I have the expertise, the experience, the grit, and the right mindset to say, take a step back and look at this big, huge challenge and start deconstructing it and say, okay, what matters here for my organization? What matters here for my team? How can I bring my organization forward? What kind of a system or approach do I take in order to prioritize on the right things? I can't do everything. And that's a mindset shift as well. I've worked for large organizations, and I was pretty much my entire career being on enterprise roles where demand comes from everywhere. So leaders have the demand from the boards, have the demand from the different divisions and regions, that everybody wants something. That's a lot of pressure. So the shift of, I don't have to have all the answers, number one. I don't have to do everything. That's a big struggle that's in a lot of leaders. Realizing that sometimes going slower, you're going faster. Meaning, I'd rather do and focus my team on 5 things, and we do them well with clarity, and they are the right things. So what we need to focus on is how to prioritize that, then stretch thin and do 20 things. And I'm kidding here, because it's not 5 and 20. I mean, I've seen organizations that are focusing like on 100 different critical projects, right? Sometimes we say we have only 6 or only 8 or only 10. But really, when you unravel it, it ends up being hundreds of projects. And those are the core ones. It doesn't even refer to the long list of other projects that are happening. So as a leader, that's a big mindset shift to say, hey, I actually don't have to do everything. Not only I don't have to, we shouldn't. And then get the courage to speak about that and communicate about that to the powers that be, let's say the board or others, about helping communicate, here's what this means, here's where we are. And I know that's easy to say, and it's easy to say it as, being outside of it, but experience and record tells us that today's leader needs to be that flexible, that adaptable, that human leader that gets their team enabled and mobilized and keeping the momentum and focusing on the right things and focusing on the right number and the right context of things versus I'll tell you what to do and I need to have control and I need to know exactly what's happening and we need to do more in order to do more. We fall on our face when we do that. Focus and clarity are paramount, and that lens is what I think makes a difference in today's world.
Yeah, I love that, and I cannot relate more. But the question here is, how can leaders balance between innovation and risk, especially as regulations and ethical expectations that we discussed in the last episode continue to evolve over time?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, pan metro nariston, everything in moderation, meaning neither edge, neither extreme is good. In other words, you can't go into analysis paralysis, which means really stifle innovation because you're putting way too many guardrails, way too many rules and regulations. But you can't, in my mind, I don't advocate for one or the other edge. On the other end, to just open up, no guardrails, just experiment, innovate in the name of innovation. And this is a brand new world and we have AI to help us, right? It's asking for trouble. So your question, It's not an easy thing to do, how to balance the two. But I think it's a necessary thing to do, to balance, okay, let's put some guardrails. And again, I think we spoke about it in the previous episode, right? What are the different categories, the different tiers, if you will, of initiatives that we have, right? What are the more important? Maybe those are the ones that we need to put a little bit more guardrails on because the impact, it's more critical, be it risk, be it, regulatory requirements, whatever it might be, right? The impact to the organization now versus the future, how much we want to experiment, what is the appetite we have, right? So it's kind of like balancing that where we're putting more guardrails versus less guardrails, depending, understanding the context of what we're working on. That I think will help balance going crazy with rules and regulations versus in the name of innovation being careless. So it's not about being careless, but being thoughtful about what we execute on. And it's not an easy thing to do, for sure. But I think it's necessary. Innovation and accountability are two sides, I think, of the same coin. They need to stay together and work together through both those lenses for what we're doing in our organizations, really to be the right thing and be successful as well.
I totally agree with your perception. And if I can recap this, I would say that leaders cannot pose innovation out of fear, and also they cannot push innovation forward without responsibility. Like you mentioned, it's a balance between ambition, how to be innovative, and accountability as well. Do you agree with that recap?
Yeah, I love how you framed it, Omar. It's a balance between ambition and being innovative and really just not go too restrictive. I'm going to, because I have such a huge background worked in data governance, I want to share something that I heard somebody else say. It's an example actually that I heard on Sakata from Kellogg's and Cocktails say it. He heard it from somebody else, and I don't recall the person's name. But the metaphor is the brakes that cars have. So we're talking about governance because we're talking about balancing now innovation with regulations and governance. So what I heard from Juan, I heard it from somebody else, is that brakes are actually there to help us go faster, not slower. And I've done so much work in data governance that really resonated with me. And here's how to think about it. Our cars have brakes. If we go really fast, it's because we know that if something goes wrong, that we need to really respond to a situation, we're going to hit the brakes. So we're going faster because we're feeling safe that when it comes down to it, if I need to, I have the brakes to stop me, to help me safeguard me. So brakes, governance, thoughtful regulation, not stifling regulation, right? Again, it's hitting that balance, that pan metro nariston, for those that speak Greek, right? That balance, that moderation. It's there to help us actually go faster, which means we can be more innovative. So it is not an easy thing to do, but I'm going to say it again. I think it's a necessary thing to do. And it is necessary because that's how we're more successful with our initiatives. The whole phrase that I'm sure people might have heard it before, go slower to go faster, that's very real. But getting comfortable with that. Back to your question about leaders and shifting their mindset, go slow to go faster. It's a mindset shift, and it needs to go beyond words into practically. That's how we lead, and we get the organization to think and act that way also.
That's awesome advice, Dora. And I would like to close this episode with something practical. I would like you to share an actionable leadership practice or a playbook, some sort of a playbook that anyone can adopt today to start leading with responsibility in the AI age.
Thank you, Omar. That's an important question. This is something that I do myself all the time. And I think the biggest recommendation, or I think a critical recommendation here, is for people to realize that you don't end with AI, you start with AI. And I'll give you an example. As individuals, every day, like I said earlier, I use generative AI, different models, different flavors of it, right? I use generative AI every day. So as an individual in our personal or professional lives, I don't take what it tells me for granted. So my one recommendation would be, ask the question, does that make sense? Does that make sense? What haven't I thought about? Push back. Ask the critical, thoughtful question. I said that earlier as well, but I'm saying this again because it is really so critical. Because we are at a risk here, at a crossroads, the risk where we're just letting go of our critical thinking. But other than us letting go of our critical thinking, it's also making sure that we're focusing on the right things. And that recommendation, that decision, that suggestion, that answer that AI is giving us is the right one. It does not have, so generative AI can very easily, I think, as brilliant as it can be, it can also be dumb in so many cases, I would say, like bluntly speaking. It's not always right. As a matter of fact, it's still hallucinating. It's still making up things. It doesn't always understand the context. So asking the question, does this make sense? And then pushing back. What have I not asked you? What else could I have thought about here? So it becomes a partner, a collaborator, if you will, when we're working with generative AI. So we start with it, maybe brainstorm, maybe ask the question, maybe frame, but the context comes from us. And the more we push, the harder it will work with us. So maybe through the process, we work together because, of course, it's a tool or a resource that it's powerful and we want to leverage it. It's here, it can help us. But don't take it for granted. Ask those questions, be critical, challenge it. If we do that, so this is almost like a framework, right? You start, you're almost going, if you can visualize, you're almost going like in an iterative way, asking questions back and forth, challenging it, and then you end up with a final result. I think at an organizational level, we can apply the same type of framework. We ask questions there as well. And again, maybe it is that tiered approach where there's more critical processes that we work on where the human oversight is there, or even if we automate that somehow in there to say, does this make sense? Am I really thinking about this context holistically? What do I know that AI doesn't know? Because it could be that what I know is that this person that will be impacted if it's a hiring decision, has gone through something. Or it could be that, okay, you're mobilizing us for these other parts of the organization, but the team is already stretched, overworked, and burned out. And AI might not know this data because it hasn't been codified yet.
Yeah.
And you don't want your team burned out. Or it may be a different question. In other words, again, does that make sense? It's a very simple question to ask. And you take it from there and you continue with your critical, thoughtful questions. So that, I think, it's a very practical and easy way. And the more you do it, I want to say that the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And I think people will realize easier the strengths, also weaknesses in working, especially with generative AI, and feel a little more confident in themselves the more they start using the tools, but also within the organization, making sure we're focusing on the right things.
That's a strong piece of advice, Dora. Thank you so much for sharing that. And this keeps reinforcing a message we have returned to throughout this series, which is leadership in AI is built on clarity, responsibility, purpose. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think it also highlights exactly the other part of it. AI is not about AI. AI is about humans. And we're talking about human leadership, and we're talking about, the basics, the fundamentals that we tend to underestimate. And when a new technology comes about, we tend to skip over and just jump into trying to implement the new technology. Those fundamentals, those basics I'm talking about is having that clarity. Who, what, when, where, why now, what, so what? Here's what we're doing. So what we're doing it. How is this helping us? How we're going to do it. Having the clarity of roles, of expectations, how we work as a team. Those kinds of very basic leadership and management type of best practices, I think are more critical now than ever before, exactly because of the impact, like we said, that AI would have. And it goes right back to that human element. So I am very, very excited that, again, Omar, you made the space for us to talk about these topics and share with your audience.
Absolutely, Dora. And this is a great way to wrap up this episode 3 of The Human Side of AI. And today we have explored why some leaders move transformation forward while others fail, how AI is reshaping leadership behavior, and the mindset shifts leaders need to make, and how to balance innovation with responsible risk-taking. Dora, thank you again for your insights. In the next episode, we move into culture, how organizations can build environments where AI can truly thrive. Thank you so much, Dora. See you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.